This is the best GMing decision the New York Knicks have made since they got Jalen Brunson.
What?
This is absolutely what they needed, and here's why. What is Thibs known for? Defense. Besides just running his players into the ground, it's defense. When they beat Boston, Boston had a terrible offensive rating, but anyone watching could tell it wasn't really because of the defense. Boston just collapsed, and that's a liability of theirs. But when we watch the Pacers game, the New York Knicks offense is perfectly fine. It's doing well. But the defense is just not there, and specifically highlighting Cat. It's come out that the players were upset with him throughout the entire season because he was not hitting his defensive assignments, and they felt like he didn't take it seriously. And when you watch the Pacers series, that was a big issue. He was not doing enough on the defensive end to the point where you felt you needed to bring Mitchell Robinson in, who creates his own offensive liabilities with the hack of Mitchell. So if Thibs' number one thing is defense, and we generally all agree that, oh yeah, the offense is mostly just Brunson and the great offensive talent, that's not Thibs doing much of anything, then you need to bring a coach in who can shore it up on the defensive end. Not only that, this gives you an opportunity to go get a championship level coach. For example, Mike Malone, who is the favorite to be the candidate. I don't even think you have to think Thibs is bad, but Mike Malone is probably better. And then you get to shake it up. You don't have to make as many player changes, but everything will still feel fresh. You'll still look ready to go. And the market's reflecting that. They had worse odds than the Pacers for next year. They do this firing, and now the market's saying, oh yeah, the Knicks are looking better. Now they're equal with the Pacers. Do I think this is going to matter? Probably not, because if the Celtics don't choke again, they should win.
Without Jason Tatum?
Yes.
No, the Celtics are out. For the next year, people like me can relax because the Celtics are out. It's going to be someone other than
That's exactly why they're going to win. But
I'll bet my life saving the Celtics ain't doing nothing next year.
Well, you're going broke. But let's say even if they don't, and they've already shown they can choke once, right? So it could happen again. If that happens again and Cleveland chokes again too, who did it this year, I think the Knicks are doing everything they can to keep this player core intact and give themselves one more shot at a finals. But they're not going to beat the team from the West. So, again, I'm cool with the firing, but this doesn't really change much for me. The Knicks are a mediocre team, a bit fraudulent. It is what it is.
Okay, I agree with you in essence, but all your points, I disagree. Here's why. The final point.
So you agree that you're a mediocre team?
The final point I do agree with no, that's not the final point. The final point I do agree with is that Tom Thibodeau firing him is a nothing burger. This will not change much for the team because the team construction itself is inherently flawed. When they trade away 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges, they were in trouble. Not because Mikal Bridges is that bad, but he's definitely not 4 first-round picks good. Okay, he was clutch in that Celtics series. He was one of the big reasons they were able to make their comebacks and win those games. Much credit to him. But ultimately, they gave up so much while still having a terrible bench and having no war chest to utilize to get a better bench and upgrade themselves. So they kind of shot themselves in their own foot in terms of the roster construction. So look at Tom Thibodeau. He was doing the best he could with the cards he was given. People want to say, oh, you need to play your bench more. No, bro.
No, yeah, there was nothing.
The Thunder coach isn't some Rain Man-ass genius. His bench is just stacked. Yep. Tom Thibodeau isn't mentally stunted. His bench is just trash. Okay, you see how that goes, guys? And finally, I think your critiques of Thibodeau are a little misfounded. I agree that he's a defensive-minded coach, and I do agree that Cal was looking bad on the defensive end, but the one thing you can blame Thibs for is how many minutes he was playing his guys. Cat in particular, if you want to say he was struggling on defense, one thing I know that I feel a lot of his defensive mistakes were rooted in exhaustion. His conditioning has to be better, but ultimately, you got to find a way to reduce some of his minutes so he can have more energy. Then I think we would have seen some of those defensive errors going down. I think we would have seen a better showing against the Pacers on the defensive end from Big Bodega. So I think that's the biggest mistake I would credit toward Thibodeau.
Okay, so you do blame him for the minutes.
I blame him for the minutes, and I don't. I think a good coach could figure something out with Big Bodega specifically and get him, because a general sentiment to say he runs his players into the ground, whatever. I'm like saying his bench is trash. But I think Cat in particular, that he was the linchpin, and if he could have done something to remedy that problem, that's a championship coach right there. That's exactly what you would want from a coach who moves the needle. I know in general you don't think they do, but that kind of personnel issue on one particular man, a coach could figure out. You don't have to put the whole blame on the front office. And then finally, Mike Malone being the favorite, that ain't gonna do shit for us. Mike Malone is Thibodeau 2.0. What he liked, he loves running a tight rotation. He runs the shit out of his starters. He didn't like his bench either. So it's not really going to fix those problems. He had the chip, but come on. Let's keep it a buck. That's Jokic. That's Murray. Bro, I could have coached that Nuggets team. If Murray give me 30 a night and Jokic being the best player in the world, yeah, I think I could win a chip with that team too. So I'm not impressed.
No, Malone is definitely, I think, getting a bit overrated. He was fired for a reason. I never thought he was that good when the Lakers were playing the Nuggets. I just thought, like you said, they had the better players. And then the second favorite is Doc Rivers.
God, please. Yo,
it's only because the GM,
my heart can only take so much as a Knicks fan.
The ownership and the GM at the New York Knicks are so stupid that I think that's even viable. Because I don't see in what world you bring Doc Rivers in and be like, yeah, this is what we need. We can't get Giannis because we're out of draft picks. Let's get the second best thing from Milwaukee. No, absolutely not. The coach I'm looking at, if you are going to switch it up, is Taylor Jenkins. I think the knock against him is that he doesn't have the playoff pedigree. You're bringing another Thibs kind of coach in who's good, decently respected, but doesn't have pedigree. But I liked what he was doing on Memphis. I liked the unorthodox offense that was running underneath him. Obviously, credit for some of that goes to the assistant coaches. But if you want to talk about actually adding some life to this team, changing things up, that's a coach that I think would change things up. Because what was the critique about this New York Knicks offense, especially in the Pacers series? Brunson's holding the ball too long. Well, then when you ice Brunson out of the plays, now what's the issue? Your best player is out of the series. You can't win anyways. So I think if someone could change things up, add a little bit of new dimension, if you want McHale going for an offensive bag, if you want OG taking more of the offensive responsibilities on him, I think Taylor Jenkins is an underrated coach and someone who could do that. And players generally love him. They loved him in Memphis. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. Because one thing I do want to say, I don't think the Knicks players necessarily wanted Thibs to go, especially after what Brunson said during the playoffs. So this was a decision that was made by management. So whatever coach you bring in, it can't be someone who the players don't vibe with, or you're going to shoot yourself in the foot before the season even starts.
So looking toward the future and what coaches they could be looking at, I like your Taylor Jenkins pick as a bit of a dark horse in terms of the odds, but your reasoning I can agree with. For myself, so honestly though, I said what I said about Mike Malone, but if you want someone who like the players will like, I think he could grab the players. I think he could invigorate the locker room. He's a New York native, so Mike Street Meat Malone, of course.
Mike Street Meat
Malone. That's what I'm gonna call him.
That's what he got on his profile.
Nah, that's what I'm gonna call him.
You've been stalking him?
Nah, bro. I'm making the nicknames around here.
That's crazy. That's the nickname you went to.
I mean, from a New York native, New York Street Meat, it goes well together. Right. Anyways, but for me, I wouldn't actually want to see him be the head coach for the reason I stated earlier. I like Johnny Bryant. He's like third or fourth in the favorites. I like him because he's currently assistant coach with the Cleveland Cavaliers. If there is one knock against the Knicks offense, which you already brought up, is that Brunson holds the ball too much. They do lack that ball movement, that equal opportunity kind of offense. It's kind of individual excellence being pounded together in one team. I think that someone like Johnny Bryant could help smooth things over and increase the ball movement, because the Cavaliers this season, they were characterized by their ball movement, by their equal opportunity offense. They were an example of offensive talents bringing together a ball movement so everyone could kind of succeed. So if you could bring something like that to the Knicks, I think their offense could reach a whole new level.
Yeah, I see that logic, and that the Cavs offense does have some pieces I'd want to implement, but after how the Cavs imploded this year...
That's on the players.
Sure, but I just think that Thibs is being blamed in part for what happened, right? Because when the decision comes out from Leon Rose, it says this is one of the next steps we need to take to contend for a championship, to win for a championship. What are you saying? You're basically saying the Celtics series is not Thibs to Thibs' credit. So they're saying Boston's terrible offensive rating in games 1 and 2 is not Thibs being a defensive masterclass. You're either giving the credit to the players or you're saying Boston choked. That's fine. That's your interpretation. And then you're saying the Pacers series, he needed to win that. We had the more talented players. As a front office, what can we do if our coach can't execute on that? So if that's your interpretation, how the heck are you going to look at anyone on this Cavs coaching staff and not think similar things? So I think that's exactly why I'm on Taylor Jenkins, because he didn't even get to lose. Remember, he got fired right before the playoffs.
Nope.
So will they look at him as damaged goods, or will they be like, oh, you guys didn't even take a shot on him yet. We're going to be willing to. I understand why Malone is the favorite, but I agree with your overall point on, like, what has Malone shown me or you or anybody that makes you think he's a championship level coach? Because as far as I'm concerned, his legacy is going to be pretty similar to Doc Rivers. You have one chip, and it's only because you had the better players. He hasn't won anything when he has the worst players. He's not Carlisle. Look at Carlisle's resume. Just as a comparison, they just lost to the Pacers. 2011 Dallas Mavericks, upset, beat Kobe in the West, beat the Heatles. Now he's on the Pacers. They're making a finals with players no one thought was possible. Always had good regular seasons outside of like tanking seasons with the Dallas Mavericks. So it's hard to imagine Malone gives you that pedigree that you're looking for when I think of an example of Carlisle or Spoelstra or some of the other top coaches in the league. Taylor Jenkins doesn't have that either, but he hasn't failed yet either. You could take a shot on him.
He has some upside.
Yeah. But again, none of this matters. The Knicks are still going to lose. They're trash.
Nah.
Nothing's going to change.
I still have hope.
Yeah, of course you have hope because you're a Knicks fan. You just made your first Eastern Conference Finals in 25 years.
So,
Y'all had a parade for an ECF.
That's a great point you bring up. As we bring this to a close for any Knicks fans that are still watching, is that this move doesn't really move the needle. It's a bit of a scapegoating move from the front office. But ultimately, this season was a success, and you have to attribute some of that towards Thibs. Okay, first ECF in 25 years. That is no small task for this team. This team has seen the depth of despair. They've seen how low basketball can go with Carmelo Anthony. And now they made it to the ECF. They obviously didn't have the showing they wanted to, but still something to be very proud of.
No, this season was a failure. You have the Cavs and the Celtics, the two best teams in your conference, choke. And now you, the clear third best team, end up losing to the Pacers. You had one shot, and you blew it. It's not going to happen again. It's over. You wasted it. Everything now is just, you're just trying to make up for something
When
you
one
can't
door
get back.
closes, another one opens. Good night.